Hey guys, Pat here. I'm gonna do a quick little review of Marvel's Luke Cage, which I actually just got done recently watching on Netflix, and I was spending a little bit of time away from it to collect my words and figure out how I was gonna talk about it. So let's just get into it. I'm a pretty big fan of Daredevil. I'd say Daredevil's still my favorite Marvel show right now because I think it's the one they put the most money into. The production values on the second season in particular really stand out. I like the first half of Jessica Jones as much as anything in Daredevil, if not more. I do think that that show showed the sign of how Marvel shows on Netflix suffer from being too long in the season length. I think that that show would have benefited greatly from being like 8, 9 episodes and not 13. I think that almost ruined Jessica Jones. I won't get into spoilers, but the end of that show was very frustrating. I was hoping Luke Cage was going to avoid this. That was kind of the hope. I was hoping that Luke Cage was going to be the show that kind of fixed that issue where okay, well, there's some pacing problems, but this will probably be more fulfilling as it goes on. I wasn't ready for the lower budget. I was kind of shocked by that with this show. It seems like this is the cheapest show out of the three. It might have a little bit more money than Jessica Jones. I mean, who knows? But it certainly doesn't show. I mean, this. I mean, if before I get into my biggest issues with the show, which don't this isn't a negative review. I like Luke Cage. But before I get to my biggest negatives, I'd say right now that my negative I'm going to say early on is that Marvel needed to produce this show with a little bit more money. I think this was underproduced. I think it has too many of the same sets and locations. It starts to make the show feel way too small for its own good as it goes on. And it could have benefited from a bigger special effects budget and being able to open things up more. It's not like I need special effects and action to get me through anything. The problem with this show is that some of the bigger moments in it in the second half could have really benefited from more money. And I don't know. I don't want to say Netflix was being cheap. It's just like they didn't have 100% confidence in this being as popular it was going to be. And, I think people are going to be really disappointed when they get to the end of the show because it's a lot like Jessica Jones where it starts and it's great. I mean, really, as soon as it starts, Luke Cage is like a fully realized show. The characters all make sense. The drama's there. The cinematography is gorgeous. It's actually very well shot. Some very good dialogue. It's got this great tone that goes back to like 70s black exploitation films. It's completely capturing what the original comic books were trying to capture at that time. And I'd say the first 5, 6 episodes, in particular the fourth episode, which is kind of a recreation of the origin story in the comic books. I'd say that the show does just about everything right, everything I wanted it to do. The show was created by Chio, I think it's Chio Hodari Coker. And as you know, Luke Cage actually got really popular when he was on Jessica Jones, and it was Michael Coulter who was really great and really stood out. So Marvel was kind of like, hey, let's give him his own show, and we're gonna do the Defenders, and we have Iron Fist coming, and Iron Fist looks great. Um, Daredevil kind of sold us on this. The first Daredevil season came out, and it was just, it was the first superhero show that was at that kind of level of production value and action scenes and gore. And even though I don't think Daredevil's ever had like a great story, and I don't mean that in the comic book sense, I only mean in the show sense that it's as good as it is from an episode to episode basis. I don't think season one or season two overall have a single great story arc. Season two, particular, kind of has a very convoluted finale, but I think Daredevil's got a kind of energy and humor and fun that's missing from Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. Jessica Jones, I really like the subtext. I really like the subtext with the the survivor stuff and the feminist stuff and whatnot. There was a lot of cool stuff. It was just how the pacing was handled. Jessica's decisions near the end are really stupid. Luke Cage, at least in the first half, is so good because Luke is it seems like quite a bit after the events of Jessica Jones, and he's just at a barber shop and he's working with the guys who I think's his father-in-law, Pops, and it's got this great grounded emotional feeling. It's definitely like a noir. And to praise the things about the show, let's go into it. The cast is phenomenal. Michael Coulter is a star. He looks great on camera. Simone Missique, I think, who plays Misty Knight the detective, terrific, very attractive, very engaging, a charismatic actress. Theo Rossi as Shades, who I actually think was surprisingly very good in this, despite having a kind of ridiculous character that he had to play. But he was the most comic booky for a while in the show. But I think he did a really good job. And Alfre Woodward, she was Mariah Dillard. I think she was good in this, not great, but she wasn't bad. And Rosario Dawson actually comes back as Claire from Daredevil and has a big run in this. The breakout performance, though, has to go to, and I'm sorry if I pronounce his name wrong because I really don't know how to pronounce this, is Mahershala Ali, Mahershala Ali, who's actually in a movie this year called Moonlight, and he's getting a lot of acclaim for his performance in that, and might get an Oscar nomination for supporting actor. He plays Cottonmouth, Cornell Stokes, the bad guy in this. In the first half of the season, he is as good as a villain as Kilgrave or Wilson Fisk. The actor is so charismatic, likable. He gives such a nuance to the evil. His backstory is wonderful. They do these wonderful flashbacks in the show. And like it's like the creator of the show. He's trying to do two things. He's trying to do something that's kind of like The Wire, where it's grounded and socially conscious, and is giving you more of an idea of what Harlem is as a place, and giving you a sense of place. And he's also trying to do kind of a comic booky '70s film homage at the same time. I think in that sense he succeeds greatly in the second sense. Like I think that the homage to the '70s and that stuff. I think having I think Cottonmouth. I think the way the flashbacks are incorporated. I think the family history with Cottonmouth and Mariah. I think the Harlem Club. I think everything like that. The Luke walking around in a suit like Shaft and stuff. All that stuff is great. I think the soundtrack is phenomenal. It's not a bunch of rap music, even though I'm a fan of rap. And there's one awesome use of Wu Tang. Um, but yeah, for the most part, the first half of the show, I was pretty much enamored with it. I thought the cinematography was great, the writing was great, the pacing was really good, the characterization, the action beats were good whenever they happened. The fourth episode has this awesome sequence where Luke goes into a place and keeps getting shot up and he can't get taken down. Basically, Luke is here hiding out. He doesn't want to get involved in what's going on. And things start to get bad to where he has to get involved. And it's kind of that typical story of, I don't want to be the hero, and then people kind of have to push him into being a superhero. We've seen this stuff before. There's nothing really in the show that's new, except for some social commentary about race relations right now in the country, police brutality, the media. Um, and even though I have some issues with how the show handles it, I don't necessarily like how much they push some things with certain people. And I don't want to spoil it, but how they, especially in particular, with something with Luke wearing the hoodie he does. I really Here's the thing: the first half of the show, the subtext was subtle. It really was. It was subtext. You understood what they were saying about, this black man has bulletproof skin. He can't get shot. His black skin is his superpower. It was a powerful message, and it's very clear. And Luke has these great moments in the show, great moments where he gives these speeches about America and Black Americans and what it is to be a black man and how he doesn't like to be called the N word. This is great stuff. And this is a lot of the first half of the show. The second half, the stuff quits being subtext, man. I mean, I really got to say, they really dropped the ball in the second half of the series, especially the last couple episodes. They lay it on thick. They basically bring people into the show who just straight up say what the themes and subtext of the show are. They just say it. I mean, there's one ridiculous scene where they're on a radio program and they're legitimately just saying everything that the show was for the whole season, and I don't like that. I think it was lazy. I think it was contrived. I think the show became very contrived at the end. Um, that all these people coincidentally know each other and run into each other in a small span of time. All the main characters are related in some way by the end. They introduce a second bad guy halfway into the show who I think is not nearly as good as Cottonmouth. I think the actor way overacts it. I think his story isn't developed as well. It's just kind of forced on you. And I think he becomes a goddamn cartoon character by the end. Um, Once again, if this show had been about 8 to 10 episodes, I think they could have done everything except the stuff they do in the second half and really flesh this out. I like the end point they get to. It's got a noir tone. It's like everything ends bad for everyone. It ends very tragically in a lot of ways. And it's exciting as a setup for the Defenders and future seasons, actually. But man, I think they, I'm not going to say who they kill off, but they kill off a few characters that I think just hurt the show. I think they killed off two characters way too early. It hurt the plot. It hurt the pacing. The show kind of had a really fast first half where everything was happening, and then the second half, it's like they're trying to resolve all the incidents of the first half of the season, and it just gets less interesting, and you don't feel this emotional pathos that they're really trying to sell you on the bad guy and Luke's relationship with him. Really like Rosario Dawson as Claire. Michael Coulter and I have great chemistry. The show's never boring. There's not a boring episode. There's not even really a bad episode. It's just it has more potential than what it ends up being. Not every single episode's as consistent as it could be. And that's really my biggest disappointment with Luke Cage is that I feel like they knew what they had. They didn't have enough budget to make it bigger. So they just kept sticking with what they did, and then they just made the commentary stuff way too thick at the end. I mean, it was cheesy to me. It got really cheesy at the end. I mean, I thought it became way over the top and almost silly at points near the end. However, the acting was always great. The tone was always great. It has some really serious moments. It has some very intense moments. I think the action gets less interesting as the show goes on because it seems like they didn't give them a lot of money. Like I said, it feels very underproduced. It feels like Daredevil gets the majority of the money because Daredevil has these like huge fight scenes with a bunch of yakuza and stuff, and then Luke Cage, it's like they're having a hard time. There's like maybe 3 scenes that actually look like pretty good from an effect standpoint. Um, I love the humor. I think there's a lot of great comedy. I think there's a lot of great comedy. I think there's some moments that are really laugh out loud hilarious. I think there, like I said, the music is just on point. The opening credit music is probably my favorite so far in the Marvel. Um, and yeah, like I said, this shows a lot of potential. I do need think they need to put more money into it in the future and do shorter seasons. I've said this about all the Marvel shows, all the Netflix shows. The show doesn't need to be 13 episodes. I don't know why they feel the need to do the 13 episodes. This could have been shorter. The story was not good enough to contain 13 episodes, and it made them drag a lot of things out that didn't need to be dragged out. I don't blame the writers. I don't blame the actors or anyone. I think Netflix requires them to do these damn 13 episodes for some reason. These should be 10 episodes at the most. I mean that too. I think Daredevil suffers from 13 episodes. You know, they don't ever really get fully fleshed out seasons. Every single one of these shows, the Marvel shows so far, I love so much about them. They're like 80% great, and then the 20% that doesn't work has a lot to do with just having too many damn episodes that aren't fully thought out. It's not really realized. It's not. I mean, there's 2 or 3 episodes here I think that are so they're like filler. They're like filler in an anime or something. Um, but it sounds like I'm being really negative, and that sucks because I did like the show a lot. It's just I liked it a lot more in the beginning. If I'd have been reviewing this based off just the first 4 episodes, I would have said this was probably my favorite Marvel show. So far, I would have been like, yeah, this is better than Daredevil and Jessica Jones. I would have totally said that. At this point, no, I can't. I can't even say it's better than either one of those. I'd say it's on par with Jessica Jones overall. They're wrong. I think Daredevil's writing is really lacking. I think Foggy and Karen are crappy characters, but there's still Matt Murdock and this like Batman thing about it. There's still this action movie blockbuster sense to Daredevil. Jessica Jones and Luke Cage try to be dramas more, and I think that's what their failures are. Is that they're not consistent in that regard. Is that they're good dramas for like 6, 7 episodes, and then they just kind of become generic television 101 in the second half. I mean, everything seems so telegraphed in this show by the end. I could predict everything that was going to happen after a point. That's not necessarily a negative. It's just they had the show starting off really complex with great backstory and stuff that I wanted to see more of. I particularly wanted to see more of one character storyline, and I cannot believe they wrapped that storyline up so early. I think that was the show's biggest flaw. I mean, it really killed so much of the intensity of what was going on at that point in the show. Really couldn't believe it. I get why they did it. I get what the show was trying to do. I'm not saying they didn't have an idea with it. I just think it was a big mistake. I don't know if you'll feel the same way when you watch a show, but I was like, damn, that was not a good idea. I thought it was a cool thing when it happened, but a few episodes in, it's like that really for me, kind of killed the momentum of Luke Cage. I don't think it ever bounces back from it. I mean, I really think the best part of the show is about the first 4 or 5 episodes. Then I think it's got some good bits in the middle act. And then I'd say the final stretch of the show, there's good scenes, but the episodes overall, I think, have really bad moments, really cheesy, over the top moments. I think the actor playing Diamondback he's a good actor, but the way his character's written, I mean, he's just ridiculous. I mean, I was laughing. I was laughing at it. It was like a joke. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was such a shitty '80s Marvel comic book type thing. I really hate it went that route because it felt like it was trying to take the character of Luke Cage and bring him into the modern day and really say something with it about a black superhero, about a black Superman, basically. And the morality of Michael Coulter's Luke Cage, the way that he won't fall into a toxic stereotype about black men being more violent, the fact that he is peaceful and a good guy, he doesn't even like swearing, is wonderful, and it's totally believable and exciting and engaging. And then in the second half, it just kind of becomes by the numbers comic book story. And I think Luke Cage had potential to be more than that. This means that I think the Defenders is going to be great because it's going to have all these characters like Iron Fist and Daredevil and Jessica all together. And I think having them together is going to balance a lot of these issues out because they'll have a lot more to pull from with each one of them. And they'll definitely give that more money. It probably won't be 13 episodes, it'll probably be 6 or 7. So I'm super excited for the Defenders. I've liked all the Marvel shows so far. This doesn't hurt that at all. This doesn't hurt how I feel about Netflix, but take Stranger Things, for instance. That show has 8 episodes, and I think so far that's Netflix's best program by far. And I think a big part of that was the 43-minute episodes and 8 episodes, too. The 8 episodes, 43 minutes. The pacing was phenomenal. It kept the story going, and they cut all the fat. I feel like these other shows could have benefited from that same kind of cutting. I think there's a lot of fat on Luke Cage, not the man himself. He's just a pure, brick. But yeah, it sucks. They really needed to work around that. But to summarize in positivity, the actors are all great. It really is. I mean, I really can't go into enough. There's a great sense of character to this. I love seeing this in the same year that a show Atlanta comes out and The Get Down, very ethically conscious shows. I love all of them in different ways. I love seeing a show with a bunch of black actors in it. I love seeing a show about people who live in a black area and have to deal with being black. I think that's really important. I love seeing a superhero show like that. I like seeing Luke Cage brought to the modern day, being transferred perfectly. I love seeing Michael Coulter be a star. I love the chemistry between everyone in the cast. I really think that the use of the Wu Tang Clan, is one of the most awesome things ever in any comic book show or movie of all time. I think little things like the physicality of Luke's powers. I think how he bends guns when he gets shot, how he has the holes and he has to keep changing clothes. Um, I think there's a lot of little details that are great. I think seeing the bullets bounce off him, how they really go into how he has to get shot or how his body works. I think all that stuff's great. I think the basically what they did from Luke from a physical design standpoint, you think his powers would get boring and redundant, but they keep finding new ways throughout most of the show to make his powers interesting again. And they get great comedy out of it. It's kind of like slapstick mixed with like martial arts movies or something. Very cool, very well done. Um, Basically from a design standpoint and thinking it out, the show has a lot of brilliant ideas. Having Luke be a good guy who lives in this very dangerous area and wants to be a good black representative for black youth, to let them know that they don't have to fall back into the life of poverty and crime that so many of the rest of them have around here. That's very important for young black people in this country to see. It makes this an important show in a way that maybe the other two shows didn't have. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Jessica Jones had an important subtext, but Luke Cage is really important in a lot of ways because it's the first time I think we've been completely sold on a mainstream superhero that's black in this way. I think that, he really is going to become a superstar. Even people who didn't read him before, never read the comics or didn't know the character that well. They do some great homage stuff here. They reference Daredevil a lot, Heroes for Hire. I actually think they did a great job with a lot of this stuff. They reference Matt Murdock, maybe coming into things later. I think all the little Marvel tidbits and stuff are terrific. And yeah, a lot of those little details are great. There's one great scene where Luke just goes up to guys. He's like, "Come on, do I even have to say anything?" And they all just run away because they know they can't do anything. Lots of awesome scenes like that every episode. It always gets by on humor and charm. The show is as charming as Michael Coulter, and he is the single thing that really holds you through. He has a final speech in the finale that's really powerful and summarizes his character pretty well. And I think everything they do and say in the show was thought out to some level, and they were trying to do something important. I think they got their message a little mixed up with also this kind of just over the top tone and just poor storytelling decisions that I think are going to overall hurt the impact of this first season in retrospect. But as a foundation to build on, Luke Cage season one's pretty amazing. Really, you see endless potential here. They could have a second season that is far, far better than this season, and they have all the pieces here to do so. So I have no ill will towards the future of Luke Cage, the show, and I can't wait to see him in the Defenders. I actually really like how it wraps up. I like where they leave his character off. I actually think it makes the most sense. It's kind of poetic. So I highly recommend Luke Cage. It's wonderfully executed in its greatest moments, and I think seeing a socially conscious superhero show like this, and one with a kind of original tone and character, something we haven't really seen in the genre before, does make it a unique thing so far in comic book movies. And it once again shows how Marvel's willing to try new things in different avenues outside of their cinematic universe, which I think sometimes is lacking in creativity. However, this suffers mainly for me just from storytelling beats. I would have given this a higher rating. I would have said the show was like, man, this show's like a 9 out of 10. It's great. I'm going to give it like an 8. I think overall it's like an 8. I think the first half of the show was terrific. I think the second half was just okay. I don't think it's ever bad. But yeah, I think in the future seasons they need to either make it shorter or really flesh out the storylines more and don't have so much just padding and a lot of characterization and drama that comes in way too late in the show, like in the last few episodes. It feels makes it feel overstuffed, where it could have been more organic had they had stayed with what they're originally going with. I hate they kind of lose that organic, natural feel that was at the beginning of the show, and it was relaxing and powerful, and it was everything I thought the show could be and more. And I don't think they quite stuck the landing, but that doesn't mean that you can hold down something good like this. Coulter's terrific. The idea is terrific. The future of the show has is going to be bright. I think Misty is as great of a female character as we could have, and she's not a superhero, but she's just a super person. There's a lot of complexities here, a lot of questions, a lot of gray areas with morality. Really dig it. Really dig it. Really dig how they represented Luke in this. I think they couldn't have done that any better. And these Marvel shows are really just here to sell you on these characters for future stories with these characters. And in that regard, Luke Cage is a complete success because they totally sell you on his character throughout the show. They sell you on his character in the first episode before it's even over. And certainly by the end of the first episode, you're just going to have a grin on your face. So, yeah, great soundtrack, great cinematography, great little creative moments with special effects and the fight scenes, awesome performances. And a terrific supporting performance in particular. The guy who played Cottonmouth. I hope he gets a nomination come the Emmys or Golden Globes. He's really good in this. I mean, he really gives it a sense of importance that it wouldn't have had otherwise. I don't think. I think he brings a lot of the weight to it early on, and he feels intimidating, even though Luke could just take him out in 5 seconds. The guy still has a presence with him, and the pilot's really good. I really like the pilot in that sense. I think the pilot does a terrific job of establishing the universe. All the musical sequences, the montages, some of the dialogue bits, all great. Just fix the pacing. Didn't like the second bad guy who came in. Really didn't like how it was written. Didn't like how the show wrapped up. And I felt like it got really cheesy and redundant. I felt like they kept repeating a lot of the same story beats over and over again. Wish they hadn't done that. But overall, Luke Cage is another success for Netflix, showing that they can do original content better than any other streaming service out there. They are becoming the HBO of the streaming market. And this isn't their Game of Thrones, but this is a fine show to have on there. I didn't binge watch it as much as I did the other shows. I can watch a season of Daredevil a little faster than this, but still, it didn't take me too long to get through it. And I did enjoy it. It is a very good show. I just wish it was a great show. But yeah, definitely watch Luke Cage if you have Netflix, and you're going to, because you got Netflix, you got to watch it. But if anything, it just shows that these Marvel shows are on to something. They really are. They're on to something because they can do things with that length that other comic book stories can't do, and they can have character development that other comic book stories can't have in movies necessarily. So for that, for just the character development, Luke Cage is really really good because you do get an emotional attachment to the mains in this, and that's going to carry over into future series. And that's it.